Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Baywatch. So Baywatch stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Zac Efron, and Alexandra Daddario, and it follows a story of a drug cartel that is dispensing drugs around an ocean where the Baywatch lifeguards are. There's 3 people on the crew at the beginning, and they recruit 3, so there's 6 people overall, and they start investigating the drug case because they believe that the police aren't really very interested in it. So it's based on a 90s TV show that goes by the same name. It's the second film this year to be based off a 90s TV show that is rated R and that was more raunchy than the original TV show that got a lot of awful reviews. I was absolutely not excited for Baywatch. It's just not the type of movie I enjoy. I don't like raunchy comedies. I like smart comedies like Dr. Strangelove. And then also the trailers were absolutely awful, and the reviews were really, really bad. I went into this film expecting to hate it, yet at the same time, I knew exactly what I was going to get into. Baywatch, it's a self-aware movie, and that is a point that you can give it, because it knows that no one's going in this film looking for high art. They're going in it just to see some really tough guys, some really attractive girls, and just a lot of crazy action, and that's all anyone is really going in for. However, that doesn't really make the movie good. This film still has a lot of issues. One of the biggest issues is the fact that it just wasn't funny. Maybe some other people will find it funny, and that's great for them, but I never really found this film funny. It's just adolescent humor, and most of the humor has absolutely nothing to do with the story. They just put the jokes in there just to have a joke because it's supposed to be a comedy. Like, there's a certain 10-minute scene that goes on where a certain guy gets something stuck in, like, a beach chair, and it goes on for 10 or 15 minutes, and at a certain point you're just begging it to stop. But also, the running jokes in this film, the jokes that are going on constantly, that you practically see in every single scene, are so tired, are just so lazy and terribly done. They just feel like awfully written scenes that don't fit the situation. They're there, but you can tell that the filmmakers paused everything they were doing just to tell the joke right then and there that has to do with the running jokes and practically every other joke in the movie. And all the running jokes just make the film feel so much longer. Like, there's the constant joke that Zac Efron is clumsy because he's just a really confident guy despite the fact that he doesn't really know a lot about what he's doing. That's cliched subplot, but it's okay. The issue is they do it over and over and over again to the point that you are begging them to stop, and it really makes this film feel long, because this film, I think, is like 1 hour and 45 minutes, and it feels like 2.5 hours, and that's never good for a comedy. If you're having a slow, smart comedy, that makes sense. But if you're having a comedy like this, that's raunchy, that's adolescent, and you have it so that it feels like it's going on longer than it should, it just makes the film feel tired. But by far, the worst jokes in this movie are the ones to do with the fat guy. The guy who just barely got on the team just because he had tried it over and over and over, and he felt very determined because there was a girl on the team that he really liked, and they were absolutely awful. That's just some of the worst comedy I've seen on screen for a really long time. He's unnecessary to the plot. He does nothing, pretty much, except be there for comic relief, and he was extremely annoying. Not a single joke of his even made me smile or feel any shade of humor. Of course, none of the other jokes did, but each time he made a joke, I winced because of how painful it was just to hear them. It's awful. The character really did not need to be in there. They definitely could have shortened down the runtime by so much if they just wouldn't have included him. And also, this film has some really, really bad editing. It's mostly, I'd say, in like the first half that the editing's awful, particularly a scene where they're having it so that Zac Efron is trying out after a lot of other people tried out, and the scenes there just don't fit together well. It's really hard to say exactly how, but if you watch the movie, you'll understand that the scenes just really do not fit together. And throughout the rest of the film, it feels like that, but that also has to do with the way that characters treat each other, because it can show 2 characters that are like really angry at each other, and then it cuts to something different, and then it cuts back to them and suddenly they're really happy. Or mid-conversation, they'll be like pissed off at each other, and then suddenly they'll be fine with each other. It just doesn't make sense at all. The characters are very inconsistent, and that's fine in a comedy. The issue is that every single time that happened, it just felt jarring, because you thought, wait, they were just angry and now they're fine. It took me out of the movie. And also the character development in this film is awful. I know, that sounds weird. Raunchy, stupid comedy, character development, those two just don't really need to be there. However, there's a strong reason for it. It's like Central Intelligence last year, where they tried to have character development, but it was just so weak and half-minded that it didn't really matter at all, and it was just really forced in there. And the same thing happens here. There's a lot of tonal inconsistencies because it's trying to be a comedy and it can be a drama really quick, but I didn't understand the point of the dramatic scenes, because in those scenes they try to develop the characters, yet right as the development happens they go back right to who they were. Like Zac Efron has a scene where he decides that he's going to be a strong member of the team after messing up once, and then he goes back to being the same clumsy person. There's no development, no arc, and that would have been fine if they wouldn't have attempted to do it. Now, Baywatch isn't really the worst movie because I was never bored in it. I would definitely not say that I was entertained, but I was never bored, and I watched it, I saw it, and I left. And it didn't really offend me too much. It has a lot of issues, but the issues don't really stick with me and they aren't really all that memorable. And overall, Baywatch, it's just a disposable, bad summer comedy, and that's all it really needed to be. So I can't really get too angry I didn't give it too low of a score, because it is what it is, and that's why I'll give Baywatch a 4 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for Baywatch. What are your thoughts on this film? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.